Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for another office hours training. I'm Crystal L. Gunn, your financial strategist, life insurance agent, and small business advisor. Part of my job as that strategist, be it on the business side or the personal side, is to help you create a solid financial relationship, right? That's the only way that you get to build, again, be it on the personal side or on the business side. I also help you to have some aha moments, try to give you some information and some things and some strategies that you may not have thought about before in order to get you to where you need to be, whatever those financial goals are. That's where you start to shift. That's where the magic happens, be it in your personal finances or your overall business. And so we're going to continue with this life insurance discussion that I started last month. And the beginning of August, it was all about the misconceptions of life insurance because there's a lot of them. So go back and watch those episodes to see what misconceptions you had so that you can move past those and use this very powerful tool. The rest of August was about ways to use life insurance. And I want to continue with this month as well because September is Life Insurance Awareness Month. So I'm happy about that. But let's continue to look at reasons or ways to use life insurance, right? So reason number 11 would be providing for a spouse. So life insurance ensures your spouse is financially secure, providing them with the means to maintain their life insurance and contribute to family wealth. I remember years ago talking to a lady on the phone about life insurance, and she was older. They were mid 60s, maybe early to mid 60s. And her husband was a salesman. And I don't remember what he sold, but they traveled around selling. And he worked for a company, so he wasn't self-employed, but she worked with him. She didn't work for the company. She wasn't employed by the company, but she worked with him. She made sure everything was okay, and she traveled with him. She didn't have her own income. So she wasn't pouring into Social Security, any of that. And when we were talking on the phone, and I said, well, her husband had no life insurance outside of whatever that, normal under $100,000 amount that he had at the job. And I asked her, well, what would you do if he dies before you? And she says, I don't know. And she said, I would probably go be, a barista or something at the coffee house because she just always liked that. And I said, yeah, but do you think that that's going to be enough revenue to pay for you for the rest of your life? I said, it's great to work, after retirement age if you want to, but it's a different thing if you have to. I said, and so what type of provisions and plans are you guys making since he is the only one that's generating any income? And it was a sad thing. And she she thought about it and kind of teared up about it. And, we went on to get them some policies, but just understanding that that's a really real thing that we oftentimes don't really think about. So part of my job too is to bring up things, ideas that we're not thinking about and that you need to think about so that we can address those things. So let's look at some examples or reasons for using life insurance to provide for your spouse, ensuring their financial security and ability to maintain their lifestyle. If you are a spouse and you're listening to this, you need to think of it from that standpoint as well. You both have to provide for one another, right? So, number one way to use life insurance when trying to provide for a spouse is replacing the lost income. So, if you're the primary earner, or not even the primary earner, but if you are an earner and you're bringing wages into this house, into the house, and then you pass away, your spouse might struggle to maintain the same standard of living without your income. And when we look at households today, you know, you really need two-person income in order to even just survive with everything that's going on in the world economically. But what happens, how hard will your spouse struggle to maintain the same standard of living without your income? Or how hard would you struggle to maintain that same standard of living, right? Can you pay the bills? Let's just start with that one. Can you pay the bills? And so life insurance provides that lump sum that can replace that lost income, right? Helping your spouse or you cover everyday expenses such as housing, groceries, and utilities. Now, understanding when you get life insurance and you think about it, that's why that rule of thumb, 5 to 10 years of your income needs to be provided in that lump sum, because it's not just this year, that next year after death that someone has to pay those bills. And you know what I mean? So you want to make sure that you're providing more of that. So replacing lost income. The number two, all right, yeah, the number two reason why you would want life insurance for your to cover your loss of income is paying off debts. So if you and your spouse have joint debts such as a mortgage, credit card, or car loans, life insurance that the life insurance can be used to pay those debts in full, so that your spouse or you isn't left with significant financial obligations after your passing, right? So if you got two incomes in that house, right? And depending upon how it's set in your house, you all both are paying bills jointly. You pay these bills, they pay those bills. But now they have to pay all of the bills, all of the debt. Can they? And even if they can, does it still have an impact, a negative impact, that your income is gone? Of course it does, right? Especially if one of those individuals with that income was used to pay some of those bills. So leaving that amount, that lump sum of money, allows to pay off debt, right? Even if it's not joint debt, right? What if it is just your debt? Your spouse dies. Okay, well, you've paid off the spouse's car because maybe you want to keep that car for the kids, right? But you also had a car note that you were paying and it wasn't joint. Doesn't it make sense to pay your car payment off as your car off as well? So now you own it free and clear. Again, that's less money that you have to push out every single month for bills and debt, right? In order to be able to figure out what are we going to do, you're not changing your lifestyle, right? So paying off those debts. And I understand that people a lot of times will say, and again, that's why I started with joint debts, because sometimes people will say, well, that person is dead, but what if the mortgage was just in your spouse's name? Right. So it's not just joint debts. What if the spouse got the mortgage and you had the car payments? I don't know. And because I see that mix a lot, where every debt that we have as a couple isn't necessarily joint, right? So now if the spouse had the mortgage loan in their name, well, what are you going to do? You want that mortgage loan to be paid off so that you don't have to worry about paying that. So eliminating that debt can help the spouse avoid financial stress and allow them to focus on the long-term financial goals, such as saving for retirement, building wealth, the children, all of those things, right? Number three, funding for retirement. So if you pass away unexpectedly, your spouse may be left without adequate retirement savings. And so that life insurance can provide a financial safety net, giving your spouse the means to contribute to their retirement account or provide a steady income in later years. Remember at the beginning of this, I talked about the guy who was the salesman, and I was talking to his wife who did not work. So she was not paying into Social Security. So she wasn't going to get any Social Security when she got of that age, right? How was she going to retire? Right? To make sure she had adequate retirement savings, we needed to get them a policy in order to ensure that she did that. So funding future retirement. And then covering health and medical expenses. The one of the things that will knock out wealth or savings in a family is healthcare and medical expenses, right? Even if you have healthcare coverage, it's also such a reason why, or the reason why there's such a push for you to people to have some sort of long-term care insurance policies, right? For long-term care, one one state has already made that mandatory. Several others are in the talks of it, and I know it will follow. There's also a long-term care tax that if you have long-term care coverage, you don't have to pay that tax, but there is that tax again, trying to, the government doing what the government does and spreading the cost of things on to the constituents, right? So with that life insurance, your spouse can use the death benefit to cover health insurance premiums, medical treatments, or long term care services, especially if they were left without your employer providing health coverage. And employer provided health coverage does not cover everything, right? When I had a ruptured appendix and I had surgery, a great portion of that surgery was covered by my health insurance, but it still was a substantial amount that wasn't, that I had to pay off, right? So having that coverage helps take care of those costs so that you don't have to tap into other funds, which could be set aside for um, retirement, paying bills, so that long-term care coverage, those riders or policies that you can have, right, to cover chronic illness and all of that, but also it can fund those sort of things for your spouse after you're gone as well. So it really just truly makes sense. And the fifth reason is maintaining a family owned business. So if you and your spouse co-own a business, life insurance can provide the capital necessary for your spouse to continue running the business without financial strain. It can cover operational costs, pay off business debts, or fund the hiring of additional staff, whatever it is needed in order to, or let's say you need to shut the business down for a couple months, right? Well, then you can do that. Or you need to step away for a couple months. That business can still run. So funding or maintaining a family owned business, life insurance allows for that, right? Um, It ensures the survival and the growth and allows the spouse to maintain an important source of income and family wealth. Because remember, if you are both running this family owned business, um, that spouse was getting income too. So now that income is gone. Well, you still were living off of those two incomes, right? And so now you still can run that business while you're looking for someone to fill that your spouse's, roles and assignments, but you also have that death benefit, which is going to cover the income that you're going to lose from the death of that spouse. So just some examples to demonstrate how life insurance can provide essential financial support to your spouse, ensuring they are secure, able to maintain their lifestyle, and continue to contribute to the family wealth after your passing. So do me a favor. Think about what happens to your spouse if your income is gone. Will they be able to maintain? Will they be able to retire decently? Will they be able to pay all of the debt payments and other bills without it being a strain or without it negatively impacting the amount of money that they can set aside for later? And what happens to you if your spouse dies? Will you be able to maintain and pay off the debts and the bills? Will you be able to retire comfortably? Will you be able to do for your children and your family and also work to leave a legacy for them? without your spouse's income. Let's talk about it, right? The link is in the description. Remember, life insurance is necessary and a great tool. And when I talk about getting your financial house in order, life insurance is part of that. So when you talk about you love your family, you love your spouse, you love your children, the least you can do is have adequate life insurance coverage, taking into consideration all of these things that I have talked about for the last few weeks and will continue to talk about this month, right? So let's get to it. What's my favorite thing for for this month? You know what it is. It is life insurance, right? So again, a really, really great tool that we don't take advantage of. I had a conversation with somebody just the other day, and when I asked them, and I usually start the conversation out like this with individuals, tell me what you think about when you think about life insurance. The use is the term, what would you use it for? What do you think about? And there was two things that she said. She said someone not having to pay for her funeral. I said, okay, that's great. And then leaving a little money for her children. Okay. So when we think about that, it is the death benefit, but a lot of times people just think about, I'm sorry, it is about paying off, those funeral expenses. A lot of times people think it's just the funeral expenses. So the service, the casket, the grave plot, if you're not cremating, the repast, right? That's what most people think about. That's the extent of it. But there's other costs that are associated when someone dies, right? So, and we've talked about some of those things, paying off debt so that the family doesn't have to take care of that. Are there any medical expenses that were owed? Making sure those are paid off, right? So it's not just that funeral, right? It's not just that service. It's everything that goes into that service and then everything that goes after that service as well. And the other thing was she said, leaving a little bit of money for her children. Well, why not leave a lot of bit of money for your children? And I know the reason for the answer, leaving a little bit of money for my children, is because in a lot of instances, people don't understand being able to leave a lot in order to transfer some wealth to that next generation, right? So, what do I want you to do? Complete the life insurance calculator to see how much coverage you should have, right? Now, when you think about that and you plug in those questions, the answers to those questions, it's going to give you a number. Now, does it mean that's one policy? No, we need to have conversations to talk about what best fits you and how that works, right? Because it might not be all setting in one policy. It has everything to do with what you're trying to accomplish today and later in life. It also has to do with what kind of debts you have. What do you want to leave your children? What does your circumstance look like? So we have to tailor it specific to you and your needs. And the way that we do that is, again, through conversation. So complete that life insurance calculator to see how much coverage you should have. That becomes our starting point, and we build based off of that and other conversations that we're going to have to create a strategy that works for you and fits your dollars, right? So then schedule that free consultation with me. Let's discuss the options. Doesn't matter where you are in the US, give me a call and let's fill in the gaps and get you, your children, and your spouse covered. So all of these things that I talk about, you don't have to worry about because you're absolutely positively adequately coverage. And that is the thing that is huge. If this information has been helpful to you, please make sure you share this with your friends, families, and coworkers. You never know who's looking, who's in need, who's been praying for a thing that this could be the answer to. Don't be the gatekeeper. Don't hold on to it. Hey, I found this some great information. Take a listen. You never ever know You just don't know. So share this information with someone else. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on so that you don't miss this information that I share. Here's one of the things that I hear the most. People think I just have more time. And then you look up and someone gets chronically ill. Someone, you hear it. Such and such died unexpectedly. We don't know the day, the hour, the second that our time is up in this life, right? But we know that we have a moment today in order to be able to make sure that we're adequately covered, that savings is done, that whole financial strategy, getting your financial house in order, is taken care of. So stop thinking that you have time, because you don't. And as I always say, the earlier you start, the better, right? It's better to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And a lot of people are reactive and it shows. Okay. So I always say, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace for what you didn't know yesterday. If you know it and you heard it today, tomorrow you can't give yourself grace for not moving forward, not doing the things that you need to do. So give yourself some grace. Keep striving for your next level. Never, ever, ever give up on you. And most importantly, invest in you. And I want to say this because a lot of people will think, okay, well, I can't afford that, right? Okay, well, let's look at your numbers. And I'm not pushing you to get this high premium. That's not how I work. I try to work to make sure what you have is going to cover what you need and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So, but we have to stop looking at this and the other things that you pay for to get your life, your health in order as bills, and look at them as investments in you. It's not a car payment. It's not a utility bill. It is truly an investment in you. And when you change the way that you think about it, it hits and feels differently. And you wind up being more open to something when it's a benefit to you. Yep, having gas and lights on, that's a benefit to you. Yep, driving that car is a benefit to you, right? But having adequate coverage that's going to protect you, protect your family, and possibly build some generational wealth that you can pass down. That's an investment in you and your family. And I promise you, it's the best investment that you will ever make, investing in you. And it's one that you'll never, ever, ever regret. So thank you for joining me for office hours training today. I am Crystal Gunn, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. Be sure to join me for the private online Q&A immediately following. The link is in the description. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn notifications on so you never miss this opportunity. Thank you again, and I will see you on the other side.